Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. If you're tuning into this, chances are you or maybe someone you know has dealt with acne at some point. And let's be real, you know exactly how incredibly frustrating it can be. It so often feels like a complete mystery, right? Like one day your skin is perfectly fine, and then literally the next morning there's this angry breakout and you have absolutely no idea why. Well, today our mission is to completely shift your mental model. We're going to take acne totally out of this realm of random, chaotic frustration and show you that it's actually a highly logical, completely predictable biological system.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off by tackling the myth of dirty skin. Then we'll walk step by step through what's called the clutter chain. After that, we'll look at quiet clogs, examine what exactly happens when your body's alarm system goes off. And finally, we'll learn how to actually read your skin's process.
All right, let's dive straight into part one, the myth of dirty skin. Because, spoiler alert, acne is not a hygiene failure. If you've ever struggled with acne, you've probably felt that pang of guilt, or worried that maybe you just aren't washing your face enough. Well, let's drop that idea right here, right now. To really bust this misconception, we have to completely stop thinking of a skin pore as just a hole that collects dirt from the outside world. It's really not. It is actually a tiny, living, incredibly crowded biological system all on its own. And the leap from a quiet, happy pore to an acne-prone state is pretty profound. In a normal state, your skin is always multitasking. It's doing three things at once: producing oil, shedding dead skin cells, and keeping the outward flow open. But in an acne-prone state, that balance just breaks. Too much oil adds to the buildup, the flow starts to slow down, and material begins to collect inside. So think about it like this. Picture a really busy market lane where delivery carts, people, and boxes are all trying to move through a super narrow space. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with one single delivery cart by itself. But if a cart breaks down and stops, and then another one piles up right behind it, suddenly the flow gets completely blocked. Pressure builds up. The entire lane changes its behavior. And that is exactly how acne works. It's a plugging, buildup, and reaction problem. Which brings us to part two, the clutter chain. This is all about seeing acne as a system, not just a random event. We're going to follow the exact biological sequence of events that actually creates a breakout. This is what we call the clutter chain, and it has 5 distinct phases, where one variable directly triggers the next. First up, excess oil is produced. Second, instead of shedding cleanly and falling away, dead skin cells become sticky. Third, those sticky cells and the oil combine to create a trapped buildup. Fourth, your skin naturally responds to that rising pressure. And fifth, microbial growth jumps in and amplifies the whole issue. To really visualize this, think of oil production like pouring cooking oil down a kitchen sink. A little bit goes down just fine, but too much, it coats the pipes and starts trapping debris. Then add in those sticky, shedding skin cells. Imagine blowing flour dust into a narrow, slightly damp doorway. One little speck of dust is nothing, but as it collects and mixes with moisture, it forms this thick, stubborn paste. That paste, that's literally the clog forming in your pore's doorway. When we look at this whole chain from start to finish, it's just pure cause and effect. More oil simply equals a higher load for the pore to handle. The sticky shedding forms the physical plug. That trapped buildup causes the internal pressure to rise. The skin's response to that pressure is what causes the redness and the pain you feel. And finally, microbes swoop in and dial up the inflammation. Seeing this clear, step-by-step logic, that is the absolute first principles version of understanding your acne. And hey, notice how bacteria is way down at the very end of that chain? People so often think that bacteria is what starts the acne in the first place, but it really doesn't. Bacteria are basically like leftover food left out on a dining table. The food didn't become a problem because bacteria just magically appeared out of nowhere. The problem is that the conditions, a warm, blocked, oily, crowded pore, were absolutely perfect, and that is what allowed the bacteria to thrive. All right, moving to part 3, quiet clogs. Let's look at where the blockage actually begins. So the official medical umbrella term for this quiet, early-stage clog is a comedone, and this usually shows up in one of 2 forms. The first is a whitehead. Think of a whitehead like a sealed packet. The pore is totally blocked, all that material is trapped just underneath the surface, but it's closed off to the air. It's full, but it hasn't burst. The second form is a blackhead, and that's where the clog is sitting partially exposed to the open air. And I really want to emphatically bust another myth right here, because I think it'll alleviate a lot of personal guilt for some of us.
Blackheads are not dirt. Seriously, they are not dirt. That dark black or gray color only happens because the naturally occurring melanin and oil trapped inside the pore are being exposed to oxygen. It is literally just a chemical oxidation process. It's exactly the same thing as a sliced apple turning brown when you leave it sitting out on the kitchen counter. Okay, things are about to heat up. Part 4, when the alarm sounds. What exactly happens when that quiet little clog gets pushed a bit too far? So when the wall of your pore stretches from all that trapped, built-up material, your immune system finally reacts. And here's the key. Inflammation is not the disease itself. It's a smoke alarm. The alarm isn't the fire, right? It's simply your body's loud, bright, hot, and painful response alerting you to the intense internal crowding and pressure going on inside that tiny, closed space. This dynamic gives us two totally distinct families of acne. First, you have the non-inflammatory blackheads and whiteheads. That's just plugging without much of a reaction at all. But cross that threshold, add in the immune system's response, and suddenly you enter the inflammatory family: papules, pustules, nodules, and cysts. It is the exact same underlying blockage, just with an active, aggressive immune argument happening right around it. Let's step through this escalating tension real quick. First, you get a papule. That's the red, swollen bump. The alarm bell is officially ringing. Next is a pustule, which is when that bump develops a very visible pocket of material right at the surface. Now, if the inflammation spreads deeper down under the skin, forming almost a tunnel-like problem, you get a nodule, a deep, firm lump. And finally, a cyst is the absolute deepest, most fluid-filled inflammatory lesion. And listen, just like blackheads aren't dirt, pus is absolutely not dirt either. I know it's not fun to look at, but visible pus is actually visual proof of your body's defense system actively working for you. It's just a collection of immune cells, fluid, and cellular debris that all rush to the site to contain the problem. It is literally just biology doing its job, not a sign of poor hygiene in the slightest. Finally, Part 5, reading the skin's process. It's time to take this new mental model and put it to work. See, different acne types aren't random, isolated diseases that strike out of nowhere. They're actually more like different weather patterns forming from the exact same atmospheric ingredients. Oil and sticky shedding lead to a clogged pore. If it stays quiet, it becomes a blackhead or a whitehead. But if pressure builds and inflammation ignites, it cascades down into papules, pustules, or cysts. It's really just a map of possibilities, all based on how deep and how intense your body's reaction becomes. So, armed with all of this knowledge, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. The next time you look in the mirror and notice a spot, are you just going to see a frustrating, random pimple? Or will you see the system? Will you see the inputs, the blockages, and your body's incredibly powerful reactions trying to keep you safe? Because honestly, once you start seeing the system, you will never look at your skin the same way again. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Catch you next time.